Just saw this video that Generation Iron has put up a series of videos featuring PJ Braun, his business, his life, his story. And it's very interesting, so I've been watching it. This latest edition that I looked at, this latest episode, touches on something, or it really just doesn't just touch on it, it really speaks to something that's, I think, admirable and that isn't talked about enough. A really crucial, formative experience and fortunate situation that a lot of children out there can undoubtedly relate to. Well, let me just go ahead and get into it. PJ was talking about his stepfather and how his stepfather came into their lives, his mother, his family. And he was only 19, the stepfather was, and the mom was 25. So he was 19. He already had potentially a very promising future ahead of him on the course that he was set on. And he fell in love with the mom, and he decided that he would take a second job so that he could step in and fill that vacant position in that family's life and be the stepdad, be the good husband, be the provider, be the man of the household. And he did. PJ even he recollects a story when he was like 5 years old. He was overweight, very overweight, and his stepfather saw him open around the house all the time. He kind of got tormented and picked on because of his weight, and he wasn't a very happy child. And so the stepfather wanted to get him involved in something like a sport, so he tried to get him into football. And PJ was too heavy to play with kids in his own age bracket. They loaded him up with sweat clothes and put plastic bags over top of the sweat clothes, and he set about, when he would show up for practice, he was to run around the field, just run laps. So first day, he's all decked out in all his heavy garb, hot summer, running laps. So he runs laps for 2 hours. End of the day, he doesn't want any more of this, doesn't want any part of it. It's like torture to him. It's been horrible. Goes home crying, complaining, he's done. So the stepfather, steps up and says, you know what, I'll come down there with you. I'll help you. I'll do it with you. We can do it together. And so he goes down there with him. And thereafter, he went every day, every practice with him. And he ran those laps with him. And the end result was that PJ ended up losing 30 pounds and was able to play in the league with the kids, the kids his own age. Anyway, it's just, and that really struck him that's something that'll stay with him forever, and his appreciation and respect and high regard for his stepfather. As a younger man, as a younger guy growing up with everything you got to deal with, the turmoil, the problems kids face, so he had a lot of stuff going on, and he didn't appreciate at the time. He didn't recognize, or didn't click with him, didn't register with him what an enormous asset and how fortunate he was to have his stepfather there in his life, how they all were, and what a just remarkably upstanding, moral, strong character, high virtue composition man this was. But as he's aged, as he's gotten older, he said, he looks at it in a different light. And he realizes now he has all that appreciation and such high regard and enormous amounts of respect for the man that his stepfather is and the things that he did. And that clicked with me, registered with me on many levels, because I was raised by a stepdad, my stepfather. I consider him to be my father. Anytime I ever refer to my dad or my father, that's who I'm talking about, because for me, I don't know any other dad or any other father. My paternal father, he literally just did his part in creating me, but that's it. He took off ran out of my mother and I when I was maybe a year and a half old. I had problems with my legs, health issues. I was paralyzed from the waist down when I was born, a bunch of other shit. And I don't know, maybe it was too much for him, maybe he was disappointed, maybe he just wasn't ready to settle down, I don't know. But back in that day and time, just like Nobody raised an eyebrow at, dressing a 5-year-old kid up in layers of sweat clothes and putting plastic bags over him, making him run laps for 2 hours in heat. By the same regard, nobody would hold this man accountable legally. He didn't, this happened. Men of low caliber, low character, they could do these kind of things, and there was no repercussion, not like today. Yeah. Anyway, same story. My stepfather came into the picture, and he really filled that role. I mean, he was, like I said, the only dad. He was my dad. He's my dad, my father, and I didn't appreciate it at the time the same way that I do today. I look back and I'm just filled with a heavy sense of a tremendous debt that I owe that man, and I could never repay him. And the fact that I could never be half the man he was. I could never be half the man he was. I never will be. They just don't make men like that anymore, I don't believe. So, same thing. When I was in the throes of it, as an adolescent, young kid, adolescent, teenager, I appreciated him. I loved him. But wasn't the same. It didn't register to me the enormity of the impact, the positive impact he had, the formative impact on my life, and what a huge asset, he was, a blessing, miracle in my life, and my mother's, my brother's. But I do today. But the real seed of the story is there was a rift between myself and my dad because I was wild when I was younger and I got into a lot of shit, and he did everything he could. If it hadn't been for him, I'd have been a hell of a lot worse. Who the hell knows what I'd have turned out as? And that rift, though we patched it up, we never got to be as close again because we were both just stubborn as we should have been. I told him all these things. I told him how important he was to me, how much I loved him, and what a man he was, and that I've never seen anybody with half the work ethic he had. And I told him all these great things during his life, before he passed away. But I didn't spend the time with him that I wished I had. And of course, as a lot of you may know, he passed away last year. He passed away last year, a little over a year ago now. So that's the moral of the story. The thing to take away, there's many things to take away, but I think one of the things, in my opinion, to take away is, don't let time get away from you. If there's somebody that's that important and meaningful in your life and irreplaceable, and they will be irreplaceable once they're gone, don't wait until then to realize it. And learn from PJ's lesson, because today he's very close to his dad. And I'm not even going to insult him by saying stepdad. I'll say to his dad. He's very close to him. He works with him. He realized, the value and the importance and the gratitude he has for this man. And that's wonderful. It's great. It's beautiful. Whereas in my case, two stubborn, prideful men, we just didn't, and it shouldn't have been him that gave in, it should have been me. And yes, like I said, we reconciled and I told him all these things, but there were so much that we missed that we could have done together. We could have spent time together, we could have hung out together, we could have engaged in all kind of activities together, And that's one thing I will always regret not having done. I didn't seize that opportunity, and I regret that. So I think that's the takeaway from my perspective. The takeaway is don't do what I did. Maybe look at PJ's story and the difference. And that's the difference. Is that two guys raised by stepdads had unaddressed issues and things didn't even realize they had when they were kids regarding their real father and his abandonment. Didn't take the time to really push that aside enough, or didn't have the life skills yet, whatever, weren't capable to push that aside, or didn't even realize it was in the way, to really see the value in the person that they had right there in their lives that was there for them every day, And I wish I had seized the opportunity. At least he has. So, stepdads, man, and even if it's not your stepdad, if it's your real dad, you know, maybe have words, have disagreements young, maybe a divide occurs between you. Don't let that fester. Don't let it just stay there like that. Don't let it just stay like that. You do something. You take the initiative. You do it. Right? You're the one with the debt. Okay? They're not. They stepped up. They fulfilled the promise. They were there. And they're probably always going to be there for you. But you need to suck it up and let them know how you feel and learn from them and collect that knowledge from their experience that potentially will die with them when they pass, if not for maybe you to take the effort to keep it alive. Anyway, that's it. Just want to touch on that. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Take care, and I'll see you again shortly.